If you can answer my question correctly, I'll do anything you say. I attended my high school reunion.
Rachel, a beautiful classmate from Harvard who always had a sarcastic remark for me, suddenly hit me with a tough question. It was the kind of question that could only be solved with knowledge of French. She looked at me with a slight smirk, clearly expecting me, just a high school graduate, to fail.
But I just answered, I got it already.
Then, leaving her stunned by my correct answer, I walked away from the venue.
A few days later, she came to my office. On a circle with radius alpha, the central angle beta along the central line. Standing near the door on the morning commute train.
I reviewed the material for next week's exams as the train slowed and approached the nearest station to my high school.
Wow, it's a long line today too.
After passing through the ticket gate and looking over toward the bus stop, I saw the usual sight, a long line of students in uniform.
Hey, Alex.
Oh,
hey, good morning. The one who called out was Ryan, my classmate.
Since we took the same train, we always ended up waiting at the bus stop together.
Hey, Alex, I need help with a math question during break. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
My name is Alex Carter, a second-year high school student with exams coming up next week. So, if you set this part as EOB equals alpha, then AB becomes 2 alpha sin alpha. It's easier to see if you bisect AB perpendicularly. Oh, I get it now. Thanks.
I go to a private high school that's far from home. My dad, who runs a food factory, encouraged me by saying, "Don't worry about tuition, I'll handle the scholarship repayment later." He wanted me to go to this challenging private school, even though it was expensive.
Alex, could you help me with this English grammar question?
Oh, this part? Yeah.
I'm also stuck on this translation. Could you explain it to me?
Sure, I got it.
My classmates often came to me for help, trying to clear up any misunderstandings before exams. Oomph, always playing the helpful guy.
Turning around, I saw Rachel watching me with a puzzled look from her seat near the hall. She was the daughter of a company president, a beautiful girl with striking features. She was also exceptionally bright, ranking at the top of our grade among the girls. You're lowering your own rank by being such a helper.
One exam period.
I remember dropping in rank, and she made sure to point that out.
Well, I'm not as brilliant as you, Rachel.
I believe her intelligence isn't something she was simply born with, it's the result of her hard work. I'd seen her studying alone in classrooms in the library after school and on weekends, out of sight of others.
We were in the same class for both junior and senior years.
She always tried to compete with me during exams, so I often just let her comments go, finding it a bit of a hassle. But when I became a senior, my father's factory started facing serious financial trouble.
We might have to let go of the business. My father ran a small food processing plant. But the economic downturn had started to impact his company. Dad, I'll come work at the factory.
Understanding the situation, I decided to give up on college and help my dad. Though he wanted me to go to college, he couldn't oppose it under these circumstances. With a pained expression, he apologized, saying, "I'm sorry." But I knew that everything I'd been able to achieve so far was because he'd worked so hard to support my education.
Dad, what are you talking about?
Thank you for letting me study freely all this time.
Now it's my turn to pay it back.
It's just that I'm starting to pay Dad back a little sooner than planned. When I said that, my dad shed a tear and said, "Thank you."
What? Alex, you're not going to college? Yeah, I just want to get out there and become independent sooner.
Oh, well, that's just like you. Go for it, I'll be rooting for you from behind the scenes.
Thanks. I hadn't told my classmates about my family's situation. I didn't think there was any need to say anything about it.
I wasn't looking for sympathy, nor did I want to tarnish my dad's honor. Despite that, my classmates encouraged me.
All except for one. Alex, I heard. You're planning to get a job?
One day, as I was walking down the hall, Rachel called out to me.
What, are you planning to start a business or something? No, I just thought I'd start working and get out into the world sooner.
When I replied, Rachel looked at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Giving up on college for a reason like that is ridiculous.
That's something someone who hasn't thought about their future would do. Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Unbelievable.
I didn't think you were this shallow.
Turns out you're just another failure.
With those words, she walked briskly down the hall. And so, time passed until our high school graduation. The words our homeroom teacher, Mr. Thompson, left us with on our last day have stayed with me ever since.
Today marks the end of your high school years.
You'll face many things from here on, but I want each of you to find happiness in your future.
What is needed to be truly happy? I hope you'll find the answer as you grow. Listening to Mr. Thompson's final message, we all stood in solemn silence. For years after graduation, my father had an accident on the premises, leaving him unable to walk well, and I took over running the factory. Mr. Carter, what are you looking at? HM?
Oh, it's an invitation to my high school reunion. Said my office assistant, peeking over at the invitation.
Whoa, it's at a fancy hotel. And wow, it costs $200. Mr. Carter, can you afford that? When she asked me, sounding a bit mischievous, I answered with a laugh. No big deal.
When I said I could handle it, she whispered with a small grin. If you need, I could lend you some money, with interest, of course.
Oh, come on, I've got enough for this. Now get back to work.
All right. But remember, I'm here if you're ever short on cash, she chuckled.
My staff often tease me about always being low on cash.
As long as I can pay everyone a good wage, though, that's all that matters to me. Thinking this, I pulled out my wallet and started counting the bills inside. A few days later, the reunion day arrived.
I arrived a bit late to the venue, having dealt with a problem at the factory. Apparently, since many classmates were graduating from four-year universities and entering the workforce, they decided to hold a reunion before everyone started their new jobs.
Alex, you're late. Sorry, I had to take care of a problem.
It took a little longer than expected.
Though several years had passed since high school, my old friends warmly welcomed me, and we caught up on each other's lives.
So, Alex, I heard you took over the family business. How's that going?
Well, I wouldn't say it's great, but we're managing. All my classmates had graduated from prestigious private or national universities. They had secured positions at top-tier companies like general trading firms, major banks, and securities firms. I was the only one among them who had started working right out of high school. It was true that I wanted to see my old friends at this reunion, but I felt out of place whenever the conversation turned to work.
But you know, Alex, I was surprised when I heard you were going straight into a job. You had the grades to aim for a national university, what a waste. You're giving me too much credit. I'm really not that exceptional.
That's right, you are giving him way too much credit.
Just because someone's good at studying doesn't make them exceptional.
When I turned around to the voice behind us, Rachel was standing there. She wore a dress with a bold neckline that instantly drew everyone's eyes. The youthful look she had in high school was gone. She had become a stunningly elegant woman.
Oh, here comes the Harvard pageant winner. She definitely has a different aura than the other girls.
Oomph, I see. People from lower classes can only make such shallow comments. I'd heard rumors Rachel had gotten into Harvard on her first try and even won Miss Harvard that year, beating upperclassmen. And now, she was working as a secretary for the CEO of her father's company.
Well, I have to say, you look pretty worn out.
You could have dressed more appropriately for the occasion. This is a hotel, after all.
Oh, you're right, but I don't own a suit. I don't usually go to places like this.
Most of the men here were dressed in expensive-looking jackets or suits.
I was probably the only one in a worn, casual shirt.
Her remark about my attire only made me feel more out of place.
Look,
people can tell your lifestyle by how you dress, so in places like this, you need to dress properly.
You make me look bad by association. Could you stop doing that?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Rachel had always been sharp-tongued in high school, but as a professional, she'd taken that edge to a whole new level.
Hey, Rachel, you don't have to go that far. Alex's family business is going through a tough time. If he can't even manage a small factory, maybe he just doesn't have what it takes to be a business owner.
It was true, the factory was struggling. Maybe she was right. Maybe I just wasn't cut out to be a manager.
Do you remember what Mr. Thompson said on graduation day? About what it takes to be happy?
Oh yeah, he told us to find the answer ourselves.
Ha, unlike you, sweating it out every day, I've already found my answer.
Rachel held a wine glass, her confidence practically radiating. A top degree in this country, constant attention, and one day marrying the heir to a wealthy family, living comfortably without a care.
That's what happiness is. Could you ever live like that?
She looked down at me as she spoke.
It was true, I didn't have a prestigious education or much money. I was just a guy working hard every day alongside my team.
But seeing the dedication of my colleagues working toward a shared goal, hearing positive feedback from customers about our products,
and knowing that I was growing as a person, supported by those around me.
All these small things, they were what made me happiest.
Come on, it's a reunion, let's not get into it. Let's just enjoy ourselves.
One of our friends, sensing the tension, took me aside to another counter, pulling us apart.
But Alex, you're the president now, right? That's impressive. My company's big, but I'm still just a low-level employee. Who knows when I'll move up? You'll be fine, Ryan. You're the best I know at rallying people. Before long, that talent will get you to the top.
While I was talking with my friend, I heard some kind of lively exchange a little way off.
What? I have no idea. Can anyone solve this?
Oh, please, it's a simple problem for someone from Harvard.
Should I make it a bit easier?
Apparently, Rachel was hosting a game, challenging people with questions, and everyone around her was trying to answer. The evening went on, drinks were flowing, and the game grew even livelier.
Hey, you over there, Mr. High School grad. Why don't you join in? Ha! Oh, but of course, you probably can't even understand the question, right?
Her mocking tone directed at me made even the people around us uncomfortable. Losers should just stick to gatherings of other losers.
This is a group for winners. Her words brought an instant silence to the room.
But Rachel didn't seem to notice and casually muttered something in a foreign language. Then, with a sneer, she looked back at me.
Oh, that's right. I forgot a high school grad like you wouldn't understand what I'm saying. My apologies. Even I couldn't let her mocking attitude slide, so I walked over to Rachel to say my piece. Rachel, are you asking people these trivial questions just to show off how smart you are? Not at all. I can't help it if I was born with this talent, can I? I'm not like you, so don't be bitter about it. Oh, here's an idea. If you can answer my question correctly, I'll do anything you want. You can ask for anything. So, how about it? Want to give it a try? She laughed sarcastically, taking a sip of her wine while looking at me. I responded without hesitation. Rachel. What? You went to cram school, had private tutors, wore branded clothes to catch people's attention, got into a company through connections, and will likely marry at your parents' urging. What value does a life dependent on others have? Ha! Ha, you're one to talk. You've only ever lived for others. Sacrificing your time to tutor classmates, dropping in rank because of it. Then, you took over your family's company for the employees' sake, struggling financially because of it. You've never lived for yourself. Tell me, what's the point of a life like that? As everyone around us froze in silence, Rachel and I stared each other down. But as fierce as her gaze was, I noticed a hint of sadness in her eyes. After a moment, I turned on my heel and headed for the exit. Alex, you're leaving already? Yeah, sorry. I let my friend know I was heading out and walked toward the door. Pausing, I turned back to Rachel. The words you used earlier, they come from a French proverb that describes a conversation falling into silence. With that, I left the venue. At the nearest station, I boarded the bus, holding onto the handrail by the driver's seat. All you've ever done is live for others. Her words echoed in my mind. Living for others, huh? Her comment lingered with me as I rode the late-night bus home, feeling a mix of emotions. 3 days after the reunion, Mr. Kensington, the president of Kensington Industries, with whom we were collaborating on a new product, visited my company. Thank you for taking the time to visit us today. As I greeted Mr. Kensington, I noticed Rachel standing behind him for some reason. She seemed just as surprised to realize I was the business partner she'd be dealing with. Shall we get down to business, Mr. Carter? Oh, yes, please. Mr. Kensington led the discussion on product development. And after about 2 hours, we moved to small talk. I brought my daughter today to give her some work experience. She can't do anything without my help, honestly. She's a real handful. As Mr. Kensington laughed dismissively, Rachel stared at the floor, silent. She hadn't said a word since she arrived at my company. My son will be taking over, so I plan to have her marry into a related company's family someday. Until then, I figured she could gain a bit of experience at our firm. I see. I nodded, glancing at Rachel, who was looking down, saying nothing. With our meeting finished, Mr. Kensington and Rachel climbed into a sleek, black luxury car. Well, we look forward to working together. Yes, thank you. We appreciate your partnership. The driver closed the door with a solid thud, and they drove away with a quiet hum. To think Rachel was with Kensington Industries, but she didn't say a single word while sitting beside him. I couldn't help but feel a bit of sympathy for her, as Mr. Kensington continued belittling her. A few days later, while I was working in the factory, an assistant called out to me. Mr. Carter, there's someone here from Kensington Industries. All right, show them to the reception room. I paused my work, wiped the sweat from my brow with the towel around my neck,
and headed to the reception room.
Thank you for waiting. To my surprise, Rachel was the one standing there. Wait, you're the employee from Kensington Industries, Rachel?
She looked me up and down, as if assessing my worth.
Even though you're the president, do you always dress like that at work? Rachel asked, half exasperated, seemingly unimpressed by my not-so-presidential attire. Yeah. Even as president, I'm usually out there working with the team, so I wear work clothes. After all, it's a small factory. I answered her with a laugh, but she still looked a bit doubtful. I brought the documents from Mr. Kensington. Here. Thanks. I'll look over them tonight.
Please let Mr. Kensington know I'll need 3 or 4 days.
Got it. Well then. With that, Rachel quickly stood up to leave. Rachel, if you have a moment, want to talk?
I stopped her before she could go, and we headed to a nearby park. At midday, the park was mostly empty, except for a group of preschool kids playing with their teachers.
We sat down on a bench. Hey, sorry about the other night at the reunion. I might have gone too far. I apologized for getting carried away back then. Don't worry about it. Adults don't get angry when kids call them names, right? It's the same thing. No matter what a loser like you says. It doesn't affect me. Oh. I see.
After that, I found myself unsure of what to say, and we fell silent.
I caught a glimpse of you in the factory earlier.
You seem close to your employees.
Shouldn't you be more commanding as the boss?
Apparently, before she went to reception, she'd seen me working cheerfully alongside my employees.
It's a small place, so we're close. Working together lets me get to know everyone's personality and way of thinking. And as president, I can't do this job alone. It's thanks to everyone's support that the factory operates, so I help out too. You're always putting others first. Alex, you haven't changed a bit.
Rachel crossed her legs, leaning back with a sigh. Rachel, Mr. Kensington clearly cares about you, though.
He keeps you close to give you experience and teach you.
It's nice to have a parent who's that invested in your future. At my words, Rachel looked down, speaking softly.
He doesn't care about me at all.
Then, in a quiet voice, she began to speak.
It's always been about my brother. I'm just an afterthought. No way. Since high school, you've had a great life and been well taken care of.
But she cut me off, her voice firm.
No. Not at all.
Her outburst startled the kids in the distance, and they all turned to look. I was never important.
I was sent to cram school because I couldn't keep up with my brother.
When that didn't work, they brought in private tutors. I wasn't even considered a real person unless I made it into Harvard like him. When I told them I'd passed, all he said was,
"Of course you did, nothing else."
Rachel looked at the ground, her voice full of resentment as she spoke about her father's feelings toward her.
I am a person my father has no need for.
I'd never seen this side of Rachel. The confident Rachel now seemed so defeated.
You can't imagine what it's like to be considered unnecessary by your own parents. No parent could possibly feel that way about their child. Oh, but they can. Mine does. To my father. I didn't matter, hick. With that, Rachel suddenly started to cry. It would have been better if you were a boy. Your father, the day he found out you were a girl, he sighed in disappointment. He was really let down. That's what my uncle said at a family gathering. Sob. Can you imagine finding out you were born unwanted?
Rachel had spent her life with the knowledge that her father was disappointed she wasn't a son, believing she wasn't needed.
Seeing her sobbing, I couldn't help but feel a deep sympathy for her. I worked so hard for my high school exams, no matter what I did, I could never get ahead of you. I topped the tests at cram school. Did everything I could to look good for the pageant. But when I finally won first place and told him, Rachel recounted their conversation.
"Dad, I won first place in the Harvard contest."
"Look, I even got a medal." "Oh, I see." "David, did you manage to get through to the American investors?" "Yeah, I got the appointment." "We're meeting next week." "Good job." "Hey, let's grab a drink and catch up tonight, and we can discuss the details." "Sounds good." He didn't even glance at me.
I wanted him to see that I could be first place in something, too, that I could finally be someone he'd notice.
But he never saw me.
For him, it was always my brother.
My brother is the only person who exists for him.
Rachel sat with her hands clenched tightly on her lap, quietly looking down as tears spilled from her eyes.
At home, I have no voice. My father's word is law.
I have to follow his decisions on everything: work, marriage.
I can't go against him. It seemed I'd misunderstood her all this time.
She acted strong, kept people at arm's length, and showed such a harsh demeanor to earn her father's recognition. All she really wanted was her parents' love.
I'm sorry, Rachel.
I misjudged you.
But Rachel, the reason you're capable is because of everything you've learned through your own efforts, isn't it?
I respect you, and I know you worked hard in high school, studying when no one else was around.
I think everything you've achieved is thanks to your own perseverance. So don't look for validation from anyone else. I think, with who you are now,
you could find a lot to enjoy just for yourself."
Rachel stood up abruptly, silent for a moment, then spoke. "Don't act like you know anything. You don't understand how I feel."
With that, she turned and walked toward the park entrance.
"Rachel, come on, it's time to let go of your parents. Why not make your own choices for your life?"
Caught up in her story, I shouted after her as she walked away. She paused for a moment, then left the park without turning back. A few days after our talk in the park.
"Oh, Rachel."
"What?"
"Rachel?
"I'm the new account manager here, so I'll be working with you," Rachel said as she returned to the factory, informing me that she'd be handling our account moving forward.
"Oh, is that so? Looking forward to it. Rachel, it must be hot today.
Here, I chilled this towel for you to wrap around your neck, it'll feel nice."
"Oh, thanks."
Since then, Rachel started coming to the factory more often, and she gradually grew comfortable talking with the employees.
"Huh? What's Rachel doing over there?"
Returning from an outside call, I saw her observing the factory floor.
"This isn't running well. Is it broken? Did you oil it?" "Nope. It's just out of oil. I showed you this last time. Come on, remember it already."
"Oops.
Sorry. Could you show me one more time?" All right. Let's do it together, watch closely."
Rachel watched the exchanges in the factory with a soft smile.
"Oh, Rachel, you're here." "Yes." "Everyone here seems to genuinely enjoy their work, don't they?" Recently, Rachel's expression seemed more relaxed. "Oh, Rachel, you're here? We're about to have lunch together. Want to join us?" We're having a lunch gathering today. But I didn't bring anything. That's all right. People always bring extra. Right, Mr. Carter? Of course, join us. All right, let's go. At my workplace, we have a monthly lunch gathering where everyone brings their own lunch. Rachel joined in, smiling and sampling the food while everyone laughed and chatted. One day, during lunch break, as I ate alone on a bench in the park, Rachel came over and sat beside me. Oh, eating alone today? Yeah, just for a change. Rachel, are you sure it's okay for you to come by here so often? You're not really tied to my company anymore. In my father's mind, I don't exist anyway, so he doesn't care what I do. With that, I was at a loss for words. Right. Rachel also seemed at a loss, and we fell silent for a while. I've been thinking for a long time about what Mr. Thompson once said, about what we need for our own happiness. I think I'm finally starting to get it, at least a little. Unable to stand the silence any longer, I decided to share with Rachel what I'd been pondering. It's not about big moments of happiness, it's about adding up small ones. I think that's what matters most. Small moments of happiness? Yeah, like watching a beautiful sunset, smelling roses along the road, or hearing a lark's sweet song. It's like cherries instead of a big watermelon, those little joys that add up to something bigger. Ha! You probably think that's a low-level way of thinking, Rachel. Small moments of happiness. Rachel murmured softly, then fell silent as time ran out, and we left the park together. One day, I was summoned by Mr. Kensington. Wait, what? You're ending the partnership? Shockingly, he told me they were temporarily withdrawing from our collaborative product development. We're not abandoning it altogether. We'll likely pick it back up in time. But for now, please consider it paused. But if you pull out now, we don't have the budget to continue alone. Couldn't you keep supporting us just a little longer? It's not feasible at the moment. We'll come back when the time's right. When the time's right. Sounds like we're done for. After 2 hours of discussion, I couldn't change Mr. Kensington's mind. Mr. Carter. What are we supposed to do? We don't have the funding to complete this on our own. I know. But we've already set up materials and production lines. We can't just stop now. As I explained the situation to the employees, they pressed me with questions, clearly worried. Oh, Rachel. I turned at the sound of her name and saw her standing nearby with a serious expression. Rachel. Couldn't you convince your father somehow? A few employees rushed over, asking her for help. She looked distressed, overwhelmed by their pleas. I'm sorry. I asked him so many times to continue, but he just wouldn't listen. I'm really sorry. Aren't you his daughter? If you just asked properly, he'd keep going, wouldn't he? Fathers listen to their daughters, don't they? Those words struck Rachel like a knife to the heart. Surrounded by employees, she fell silent, unable to respond to the painful assumption they'd made. Look, we're not stopping here. Let's figure out a way to do this ourselves. Fortunately, our concept is solid. If we keep pushing forward, we can make this work. Don't give up now, everyone. Despite my confident words, I had no real plan. Yeah, we've got the production line ready. Let's give it our all and see it through. Exactly. We've come this far, we can't quit now. All right. Let's get back to sampling and make the best product ever. You just want an excuse to eat more, don't you? Ha, you got me. But don't go eating everyone else's share. Their laughter lifted my spirits, easing the weight of my worries, at least for now. Rachel, could we talk for a minute? I led Rachel away from the others and into the office. Rachel, we'll manage to finish this. Don't worry about it. I asked him over and over, but as I tried to reassure her, she began to explain what had happened with her father. Why are you ending the partnership? Weren't you the one who proposed it? We're starting a new deal with a Chinese company. Joining forces now will give us an opportunity to access the vast Chinese market. But Alex's factory is already far along. You can't just back out now. It sounded like Rachel had tried desperately to sway Mr. Kensington, but he refused to listen. I understand your loyalty to your old classmate, but this is business. It's common sense to move to where the profits are. Investing in a small, struggling factory like his was never our priority. Once we got the technology, we planned to cut ties anyway. No, that can't be. Let's be real, that scale of a factory won't last long. Stop wasting your time there and focus on something bigger. Hearing this, I felt my heart sink, unable to hold back the wave of shock and disappointment. Sure, it's a small factory, but the people there work so hard. Dad, don't take their jobs away. When did you start letting your emotions get the best of you? I taught you to step on others if you have to reach the top. That's why you're still a disappointment. As Rachel relayed her conversation with her father, I slumped into a chair, weighed down by a mixture of anger and despair. Since I started spending time here, I began to want to see these people succeed, to see them happy. Since Rachel had started coming to our factory, her expression had softened, and I'd often seen her laughing with the others. I've made up my mind. I won't let everyone's hard work go to waste. I'll help too. Rachel. I'm going to prove to my father and brother that my Harvard degree isn't just for show, she declared. From that moment, Rachel started coming to the factory nearly every day, working alongside us all in product development. Mr. Carter, we're here. The driver opened the door, and I buttoned up my suit as I stepped out and entered the building. This way, please. An employee led me to a room where Rachel and her brother, David, were already waiting. After our partnership with Rachel's family company ended, everyone at my factory pushed through, and we successfully launched the new product. And a few years later, that product became an incredible hit, sparking rapid growth for my company. Today, we've grown into a business with 2,000 employees. Thank you for taking the time to come here today, David said, motioning for me to sit as he and Rachel took their seats across from me. Really, we should be the ones visiting you, Mr. Carter, but thank you for making the trip here, he continued. No problem at all. My schedule is packed these days, so I appreciate you accommodating this time slot. Rachel's father passed away 3 years ago, and her brother took over the company. However, he lacked their father's business acumen, and the company began to struggle. Their partnership with a Chinese company was also terminated from the other side, with the Chinese firm walking away with only the technical information. Hearing of my company's rapid growth, Rachel's brother approached me, this time seeking financial support. Understood. If we can be of assistance, I'm happy to help. Thank you, Mr. Carter. I don't know how to express our gratitude. As the meeting wrapped up, I stood to leave for my next appointment. Mr. Carter, as a gesture of thanks, well, if you're interested, might you consider marrying my sister? Rachel is a Harvard graduate. Intelligent and beautiful, as you can see. She would be a strong addition to your status. And I believe this could be a beneficial arrangement for both sides. This man had inherited every trait from his father. He was the type to use even his own sister to save himself. This matter has nothing to do with Rachel. If that's how you see things, I'm afraid we'll have to cancel this agreement. No, please, that wasn't my intention. It's fine. I'm going with Alex, Rachel said. Could you leave us alone for a moment? After a stunned David left the room, Rachel took a seat directly across from me. I've lived my whole life without opposing my father. I always believed that following his plans would bring me happiness. But Alex, thanks to you, I realized how wrong I was. I sat in silence, listening as she opened up about her true feelings. Every time I went to the factory, everyone welcomed me warmly. Even after my father cut off support, they treated me the same. It made me so happy. After you told me at the reunion that there's no value in a life spent relying on others, I started thinking about what true happiness really is. You once said, Alex, that you treasure small moments of happiness. Yeah, I still believe that, I replied. I want to find those small moments too, and if possible, I'd like to find them with you. Completely taken by surprise, I froze, unsure of how to respond. But I know I said terrible things to you back then. You probably dislike me, so I understand if it's impossible. But even if you like just 1% of me, that would be enough. She said, her voice gradually fading into a whisper as she looked down. Rachel, can you come with me for a bit? Huh? Without waiting, I took her arm and led her to the car. Where are we going? Just come with me. We arrived at the factory I inherited from my father. Mr. Carter, what's going on? Oh, Rachel, it's been a while. Sorry, could you prepare 2 uniforms for us? I started putting on the uniform handed to me. Ha! Here's yours, Rachel. Go change. Handing her the uniform, I encouraged her to join in, and when she was done changing, I gave her a towel and work gloves and led her onto the factory floor. Rachel, I'm still the same as I was back then. If that's all right with you, let's work together here. Oh. Yes. I'll join you. With that, Rachel tied her hair back, slung the towel around her neck, and ran into the factory, pulling on her gloves. Seeing you two working together like this, Mr. Carter, you look like a married couple. A female employee teased with a laugh, and as I wiped the sweat from my forehead, standing next to Rachel, who was working hard and smiling beside me, I felt an overwhelming sense of happiness.